from the deadline or something, and I was definitely not near finished. And I was like, do I take this whole day and run down to Notting Hill and participate, or do I do the responsible thing and try to finish this thing? And yeah, I mean, of course I went to the Carnival, because it's like, how can I be in the UK and not go to their version of the Carnival?
Find my zone, time to roam, no I can't stay home. Meet me inside the party, come catch this feeling. And when the girl them wine, that is my time, I could join the line, jam down with everybody. What a blessed feeling.
Say that we will run dry, by the time we realize
that we own something that's worth more than oil and gold. Nobody could pay for this. For my eternal
I'm counting now.
So every year I tell them the same. It's for the love of the music. Yeah, I come up for the fight, I come up for the high. For the love of the music, for the love of the music. Yeah, I come up for the fight, I come up for the high. Why? All over the tongue is music, all inside the band is up inside the fetish, and they can never refuse it. All out on the world, all out down the world. Yeah, yeah. Sweet soca music. Every year I tell them the same. Again and again. Oh yeah, I feel so free. I love what it do to me. Whoa, yeah. So bring that music. You love that music. We defend that music. Sweet soca music. Not somebody way. Respect well deserved. My heart is unset. I have no regret. I still feel the same. It's for the love of the music. Yeah. I come up for the high. I come up for the high. For the love of the music. For the love of the music.
Oh yeah.
I come up for the high. I come up for the high. Why? All over the tongue, yeah. It's all out on the road. Up inside the bed, and they can never refuse it. All out on the road. Right round the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sweet soca music.
I'm loving your music.
Thank you, baby.
I'm loving this music.
Sweet soca music. Make you feel happy. Make you
Ooh,
feel
yes,
nice
it does.
in the sunshine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Welcome to One Love Bitcoin, brethren. Good to have you on. I'm here with Arvin from Trinidad and Tobago.
Nice.
Oh, go on, brethren.
I'm good. Good to be on, man. Good to have I'm hoping we're gonna have a little Caribbean chat. That might be fun.
I was hoping for that, yeah, because I think you're the first person in the region that I've actually spoken
Really?
to. Yeah, you're the first Caribbean person, first first anything close to who would understand what I'm saying about our culture, you know? So
Nice.
I'm excited for you to tell me what's going on. First with Trinidad, because I haven't been to Trinidad in, God, it's been years. My last one was Carnival 2018, maybe 2017. And boy, it was so expensive. I swear I'm never going back again. I spent about $5,000 before $5,000 just for costume and flight. And I wasn't really liking that. But then, you know, after COVID, I guess everything changed. So I'd love to know what's going on down there. First, let's start out by the beginning. Tell people all about you, who you are. Tell the Trinidad, you know, all about your story and how you got into Bitcoin, why you're a Bitcoiner now.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to jumping into that Trinidad Carnival related stuff after. But so I guess my journey into Bitcoin started a few years ago when me and some friends were looking for some digital payment solutions. So you would know, folks from the Caribbean would know that it's really hard. I don't know if that's the case still. I think it's still the case, but it's still really hard to, like, if you want to do an online shop or you want to do any kind of a digital experience or a mobile experience, it's not the easiest to be able to accept a digital payment. People like, I don't know, I guess in the US and in Europe and stuff, it's easy. It's like, you know, PayPal or Stripe or whatever. And it's a pretty straightforward process. We don't have a lot of those things. And if we do, it's that you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to connect them. And then even then we have complications with our local currencies and stuff. And it's just not a fun process. Like a simple thing as setting up a Facebook store, an Instagram store or something on Shopify. It's like a non-starter. Or at least it used to be, because I haven't looked into the last, like since COVID, I haven't looked into it. But at the time it was really difficult. So yeah, that's when I started to look for options, alternatives, came across Bitcoin kind of as a digital payment solution thing. And then I started to look into it and I realized, oh, wow, this is a lot more than just digital payments. There's a whole thing in here. And I think I had that whole down the rabbit hole kind of thing where you're just reading everything and trying to understand everything about it, trying to figure out how it works, playing with all the different things.
How was the digital payments first? Like was it digital payments because you were trying to pay for something, or was it more like you just saw it in the ecosystem and was curious as to what people were using it for?
I think it's because I came looking for a digital payment solution. So that's how I came across it, because we were doing like a whole startup scene at the time. So there were like startup weekend events, and there were like a bunch of people trying to push different things in tech. And we were looking for like solutions to be able to pass on to folks who are looking to start up ventures or start things or whatever. We're looking for easy solutions. Funnily enough, the whole result of that ended up being Stripe Atlas for local folks when it eventually settled. But yeah, it's because I was looking at it. I was looking for a digital payment solution and just trying to evaluate a bunch of different options. And that's how I kind of came across it from that lens, which is cool because Bitcoin has a bunch of different perspectives and lenses. So it's nice that people can find it in different ways.
Yeah. The technical way is always a good way too, because you get to see the underpinnings before you see the social impact or the cultural impact.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like at the time it was still pretty early, so there wasn't a lot of like the content that we're used to right now, where there's a lot of podcasts and a lot of like people are writing about like the economic implications of it and how it's used in different places and stuff. A lot of that content was not around. Like that was when Reddit was still like, our Bitcoin was still like small and bearable to read. And you could like Bitcoin Twitter wasn't even a thing. So like there was a lot of technical writing.
To read now.
Yeah, I know, right? So it was a lot of signal, a lot less noise, but it was that you had to kind of seek out your own signal. It wasn't like in ready to consume places. So it was a fun time.
Was it really just online only, or was there also a local community in Trinidad that you were able to bounce ideas off, or maybe some brethren used to code with that actually had the similar mindset?
Yeah. There's actually So there wasn't a community when I started. I tried to look for a community. I couldn't find one locally, at least in Trinidad. I found like one or two people who had mentioned it in the past. I think there was a meetup from a computer science association from the university or something, but all those guys had moved on. Nobody really took to it. And I did. So like after a month of me looking into it, I was fully on board. I was like, everybody needs to know about this right now. And I did a whole thing where I got like that whole the startup weekend crew. I got all those guys together. We did a little kind of get together at a friend's place where we literally, I don't remember now, this was a few years ago, but I think I threw up one or two videos and I like explained some very simple things. I gave everybody a wallet. At the time, blockchain.info was still a thing. So everybody got blockchain wallets. So we all used that wallet. And like I said everybody $3 or something worth of Bitcoin. And we kind of just passed it around and played with it. And yeah, people kind of got excited from that, but it didn't really take off. Again, it didn't really take. And after that, I tried doing a few meetups. So yeah, I think so. Like I did a few Bitcoin meetups on Meetup. Like I used meetup.com, organized a few of those. We did I think there was a halfling party in 2016 that we did. Not a lot of people showed up. It was always max like 10 people, maybe 10 or 12 people max, and people would come and go kind of thing. So yeah, the community was tricky. Very early on, the community was tricky.
Yeah.
I even went as far as there's a TEDx talk out there for one of our local TEDx's from 16 or 17 or something where I just spoke about Bitcoin.
Really?
So I was able to present it. I was able to present it to like an entire audience, 400 people of it. And I even like put up a private key on the stage and like put Bitcoin in it and had people like try to rush to get it. So like there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff I was doing to try to engage people, but somehow, I don't know, it didn't quite take. And I kind of stopped engaging after a while. And I kind of moved into my own, I think at that time also.
Around what year was this when you were kind of like gung-ho about it? No, when you were kind of like...
gung-ho was geez, 16, I would say 16 was the gung-ho year. Yeah. And that was, we even tried a Bitcoin startup where we were we were doing I don't know if you remember this company called Purse. They were a way to buy things on Amazon using Bitcoin. Like you would get matched with somebody who has gift cards or credits or something.
Oh, wow.
And you would get a discount. Like you could buy something, you could choose something, put it in your wish list, and somebody else would buy it for you at a discount. And you would just, purse.io. I think they closed, they since closed. But we built a solution on top of that to be able to and it actually took off. It got a bit of traction for a few months where we were kind of hiding the Bitcoin side of it and having people pay us with credit card, and we would do the Bitcoin thing in the background and get them their Amazon stuff. And the plan was to eventually show people, hey, the way that we're doing this is this Bitcoin thing. You all should do this too. So it's kind of like
early version of Strike.
It was kind of like it was like trying to build adoption somehow organically. Like if people want to buy stuff, like maybe they want stuff at a discount, and maybe that's enough of an incentive to figure out the whole Bitcoin thing to be able to buy stuff on Amazon. So there was all kinds of things like that we tried. It was me and a friend who did that thing. Okay. But I think after a while I started to get I guess get a bit more technical and look into different things, and there wasn't enough of a community to bounce things off of locally. So I started to kind of pull away from that and go more international, I guess. And since then things kind of just fell away locally, at least on my part, in terms of local involvement. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a shame. What do you, I'm going to dive right in because this is what I'm interested in, right? What do you think would create the best bridge between, being able to, have all the knowledge that is accessible by this international community, and then have for the local community and, the way they think, the culture that they are exposed to, how to make them understand the importance of what's in front of them right now. Like I'm trying to figure out how the average, farmer, the average, worker in Jamaica or in Trinidad or anywhere in the Caribbean that isn't exposed to this world of the internet, right? This globalization of and financialization of the world. They're not exposed to it at all. How can we get them to understand why it's important for them to want to change currencies?
Yeah. That's a really good question, especially now because of like the work I'm doing. So like right now I'm doing engineering with Galoy and like the whole Bitcoin Beach thing. And one of the things we look at is Bitcoin for communities. So like this is something I've been thinking about as well locally, right? Is that how did that take in these Central American countries in El Salvador, and why hasn't it taken in the Caribbean in like some of our communities, right? And I think what I've seen is that it comes down, it's that you have to find the right why. You know, there has to be like a why for people to, everybody has their own reason for doing things. Everybody has their own like context in life and their focus and like it's different from community to community, country to country. Our countries have different like problem sets, different cultural approaches to things. And it's kind of like figuring out a way to frame it in a way that's relevant to the local community. And I mean, for us, like we're kind of hopping around the place now, but for us, it's funny because I think there now is adoption, like a significant amount of adoption, but it's like silent adoption. It's like people who, it's not loud, it's not meetups, it's not like public events, it's not like companies popping up and stuff. It's individuals.
They just catch on and they don't say nothing. They're like, oh.
They find a way to buy it with their friends, their communities, their little friend groups or whatever. They find a way to buy it and hold it and trade. And like I've been getting a lot of that kind of feedback that a lot of people are kind of doing this at a very, very, very localized level, which is interesting because it's that there's no way to confirm it, right? Because we have no local exchanges. We have no there's no like local things that people interface with. Like if somebody's going to get in on this, they're gonna engage with it like through foreign companies, or with like they're gonna wire some money somewhere or use a credit card or something and go on Binance or something, or they're gonna like if somebody in a friend group has, they'll just peer-to-peer send it, WhatsApp, Telegram, send it around. Like there's guys doing trading here where they literally they do retail, like it's like a retail exchange, but it's not a formal exchange, it's a friend. It's like you text them, hey, do you have any? Yeah, sure, I can get that for you. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, do you have a credit card? Sure, just go here and do that and I'll give you the Bitcoin, or so it's a lot of that kind of organic growth now, which is I think it's interesting. We could get into why I think that's interesting, but I think that's where we are right now, at least in Trinidad.
I would like to, I'd like to circle back to that probably if we have a longer conversation about why it's interesting and how it'll affect business in general, like, across the board in terms of what people are expecting to provide profit and what isn't in the exchange world. But what do you think is gonna create the biggest change for Trinidad right now in terms of Bitcoin? Because it could be payments, it could be, peer-to-peer, but it also could be mining. Because you guys have some really low energy there. Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw, but there was a huge article announcement in our local newspaper either last weekend or the weekend before that. This initiative called Trini announced, like they just came out and they announced, hey, we're exploring doing a mine in Trinidad. We have the backing of the government. There's consultants on this thing. We have a partnership with Bitfury and I can't remember who to do like sourcing of the machines, and Ansa, which is like a big conglomerate in Trinidad, is backing the entire venture. And they're looking to use one of our unused, we have industrial parks that were built over the last 20 years or whatever. Some of them never really got occupied. So there's these like industrial complexes that are empty. And we have some spare capacity, power generation capacity from, I think they were once trying to install a smelter, an aluminium smelter here, and that didn't come up as well. So there was a power plant for it. It didn't come up. So there's this power plant that has excess power. So these guys are like, oh, we should combine all these things and do something. I'll send you the article, but it's that all these people got together and we're like, oh, let's do this thing called Trini. And I think the capacity they're trying to get to eventually is 300 megawatts, which is massive. Like, wow. I think if you play that out with current mining equipment, it could end up getting up to like almost 2% of global mining capacity. So it's kind of crazy that this just popped up like a week or two ago.
What
As an
percentage
announcement.
of Trinidad GDP would that cover?
It's a good question. I have no idea revenue wise. I just know power wise, we're at maybe 1.3, 1.7 megawatts. So 300 megawatts is maybe like 10, 15% of our entire power output. And income wise, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what that earns. So I can't say what that is for GDP, but it's interesting that just popped up. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it pops up like that easily, would it put a dent in the GDP enough for politicians to notice and actually start looking to what El Salvador has been doing as a way forward as well?
Yeah. I think if that comes online, it's too big. It's like it's so big that you can't not pay attention, because it's now it's now like this. It's using significant local resources. There's significant local players behind it. There's significant capital against it. One sec. So yeah, it's this thing where it's just too big now. So I don't think you can not pay attention to it.
That's crazy though. Like the fact that they're already going to notice. Trinidad can't be the only country that that is waking up to this realization, right? Like other countries, other islands with similar power advantages must be thinking the same thing.
I think it's not similar. Like as far as I know, we're the only ones in the Caribbean that have that power advantage. It's the opposite for the other islands. They're net importers of energy, or net like it's really like power costs are really high in other places. So like for example, in Trinidad,
like Jamaica, we're like 26 cents per kilowatt hour. Could we ship our barrels of oil from you guys and from America?
Right. So we're like 6 cents a kilowatt hour residential versus 20 something. Yep. And then commercial, industrial, it's like 1 to 2 cents.
Wait,
so
that's not true.
Like,
I'm sorry, not to cut you. We're more like 38 cents or almost 40 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would more expect, because Barbados is the same thing as well. It's up in the high 30s.
Yep.
So you guys up at 36, 38. We're at 6 or 8 for residential, and we're like 2 to 4 for industrial. Could be even lower than that for industrial. Yeah. So it's just like this massive opportunity that people have tried to capitalize on in the past. Like I know people who've done like significant mining operations in the past, and I don't know why, but it's never worked out. Mm-hmm. Like the last one I know is some friends who they had a few hundred S9s and some other types of miners stuck in a warehouse somewhere, and they mined for a few months. And I don't know why it didn't catch on, but after a while it just went bust. I think it was that it could have been the environment. Maybe I think they were having a lot of problems because we're like literally on the ocean, right?
And it's before immersion days, right? No one was really doing immersion mining until recently.
Yeah, those guys were just blowing air through it. So and I think like this new venture, it's like they have to take all those things into consideration. Is that how do you immersion mine to get away from the corrosiveness, and then that helps you to control temperature as well. Like what are the other considerations? It's the energy costs are there, right? So it's just to figure out how to actually get it in place. And there's also this tricky thing too, where like, and this is related to the first point I was telling you about, where we see this kind of organic adoption, is that Forex, this whole idea of foreign exchange, it's where like, you know, the TT dollar is our currency is only, and I guess it's the same with the Jamaican dollar. It's only relevant inside the country. You can't leave the country with that and have it be worth anything anywhere else.
Correct.
So if you want to do anything anywhere else, you need to convert it to some foreign currency. And in Trinidad, it's a managed exchange. So you can't just go to a bank with your, like, there's quotas and there's allowances, and like, it's really hard right now because of whatever economic conditions. Oh yeah, no, it's really hard right now to convert your TT dollars to US dollars or anything else. You go to the bank, they'll tell you, oh, we can sell you $100 US per like every week or something like that. It's ridiculous.
That's almost as bad as the African countries I've spoken to already, where it's $200 a month, maybe you can convert US dollars.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Trinidad was gone that bad.
It's gotten crazy like that.
Wow.
It's bad, yeah. But which is why we're seeing a lot of this organic Bitcoin adoption. But it's it's also that it's bad, but it's not bad, because if you're using a credit card, you're fine. Like you could spend your credit card however much you want.
Yes.
I guess now they have limits. I think now it's like 3,000 US or something like that. But you can spend that and pay it off in TT dollars. So it's kind of a way to get around those controls. And I think people have been using that to exit into Bitcoin as well. So
those credit cards work on international exchanges, I'm guessing.
Yep. Yeah.
Some Jamaican credit
it's
cards
one
do not
loophole.
work on international exchanges, unfortunately. Our banking system is so Jurassic, so old fashioned. They won't recognize the the system that we're using.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And like, so like that was a factor too as well, that like if you're a local person who wants to like spin up a big mine, you need to go find all this USD to be able to buy the miners in the first place. So that was even like things like that were a barrier.
But I would think they could find US investors, right? Or is there some barrier for US investors to come down and want to spin up a mine down there?
That's an option. And I don't know if people have explored that option in the past. Because it's that like the conditions are there, right? Like if you wanna buy it with external capital, put the miners here, pay off the power costs in like the local currency. That inflow is like that's a very easy direction to flow in. So I think that's what this new venture is doing, is that it's kind of leveraging international investors and international capital as well to put these miners in place. And you're earning foreign currency anyway. Bitcoin is universal currency, so it's not that you're locked into the local economy. So it's an interesting play. It's a really interesting play.
Are they public? They're not public, right? The Trini mine.
I am not sure. Ansel McCall, who's a big backer of it, is a publicly traded company on our local exchange, and I think they may even be traded on the Jamaican Stock Exchange. I'm not sure if they're traded on the other island exchanges as well, because it's like this kind of local regional conglomerate.
Okay.
But they're definitely traded publicly here, and they're the ones who are like a big backer of that project. So I'm not sure if that project would eventually be traded publicly or not. They haven't said, but there's some public backing.
I'm writing it down now just to see if I can follow up and see where they're traded, and because it sounds like if you can get a derivative of that, it's always good to invest in companies that are, or even corporations or governments. Well, I hate to say that, but in places in general that are push individuals is the way I like to look at it. An individual that is pushing for the adoption of Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining, it's worth keeping my eye on or investing in. The main thing I'm worried about is that Jamaica is nowhere close to being on that path, but that's for another day, I guess. Carnival is really what I want to talk to you about. Carnival is my favorite topic right now. Bridget, let me tell you.
Oh boy.
Ever since I was 18 years old, I was going to Carnival, from Miami Carnival I went to college at University of Miami. So it was Miami Carnival every year in October. And then if I was lucky enough, or if my family helped me out, I could make it to Trinidad Carnival. And I did Trinidad Carnival probably 10 years in a row at one point.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah, I love Carnival all the way through.
That's impressive.
All the way through to the making sure I know the best songs, so I can have fun crossing the stage. And sometimes you hang out by just the steel pan alone. Like I've done a lot of Trinidad, and I embarrassingly don't feel like I know enough about Trinidad for the amount of time I've been in Trinidad. So I would love for you to give me your opinion on Carnival in general, what it used to be, what it is now, and just what do you think about it, and if it can be saved, because I think it's nothing like what it used to be. But maybe I'm just old. I don't know. But do you think it needs to be improved? What do you think?
Yeah, so that's a good one. The carnival that's coming up next year is going to be a really crazy one, because we haven't done it for 2 years now. So I think there's a lot of just kind of pent up people just want to participate. So just to get out of the way, like the next one is going to be insane, 2023. I think I saw somebody say,
right.
Yeah, they've already announced that the bands are getting primed in February or something. I think Tribe sent out an email to everybody. Like, that's one of the big bands here for anybody who's listening. Like, it's they sent out an email to all their past masqueraders saying, hey, we're definitely going to be there. 2023, it's happening, and we're selling tickets and packages and stuff from now, like by now, because it's a thing. And I think I saw somebody said that like about a few weeks ago they've given up on trying to find accommodation in Trinidad around that time next year because it's all sold out. Like Trinidad is sold out accommodation wise for Carnival next year. So it's we're gonna see what that's gonna be like because it hasn't been around for 2 years. I think the last one was 2020. So
I think so.
2 years.
And it squeezed
So
that one in right before. I think already started.
I remember that one. Yeah. Yeah. It was like a week or two after we started to get all the the first case and all that stuff. It was like we just got that one in and then that was it. Yeah. But no, I think so Carnival has gone through its phases. It's I think a big criticism that people have right now is that it's gotten very commercialized and gotten very I guess it feels a bit generic. Which to me it's that everybody has their version of what Carnival is, and it's kind of always changing. So like when I used to participate, I've done it over the years, and it like a long time ago, it used to be more like this kind of pretty mass kind of like expressing yourself through your costume thing, and it was more about the costume and the show that you put on, and less about just it being like a party. And like in recent years, it's turned into a massive street party where the focus is the party and less on the costumes and the storytelling and stuff. But I think that there's it's a decent mix. Like there's some cultural elements that are still pushing through there. There's some bands that are trying to kind of reclaim and figure out how to bring some of those older elements of the Carnival back into it. Like there's a band called Lost Tribe that they try to do more of the costume side of things. There's I think they during COVID folks were also looking into like productions and other types of things you can do from Carnival, like that takes it away from the physical space and puts it into the virtual space. So there was like a huge production put on by Tribe, that same band. It was like a Carnival show that aired, I think it was 2021 on Carnival Sunday. Okay. A 1 hour production that was really nice. It was like a whole story told through costumes and through music, and it was just a different way of expressing what you would normally express through Carnival. So I think that sort of element is like they tried it and it played off really well. So I feel like that sort of element is gonna start to come through again. And I feel like it's kind of like bringing the creative industries more like back into it in a more like in a more focused I guess more participatory way, where it's sure there's a party and there's a street parade and there's all the fets and all the different things, but it's also that there's this cultural element that's trying to get in there. And I think they're starting to make some headway. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes in for the next in-person Carnival.
Do you think that those costumes are going to end up being the premier ones or the more expensive ones to buy if you really want to participate in because I remember Lost Tribe, the costumes were intricate. They were amazing compared to the skimpy, almost nothing you have on Tribe costume.
Yeah. It's a good. I don't think so. I don't think the price diverges too much because so like it's kind of like different focuses. If you have a band that's less about the costumes and more about like the experience, then they spend more on the experience. They would provide more amenities on the road. They would have like, I don't know, like drinks and trucks and different things. And like the ones that are more about the costumes, they would scale down the experience maybe and like focus more into the actual costume and the actual like parade and stuff. So I think they generally try to target a certain price range and try to get people, like try to make it so that it's in reach for people, and they would tailor the experience and the on-day thing. They try to manage the costs, I think, to kind of get around that. And it's also become this thing where the whole, like, they're all connected. They're all like all these bands, they have like the same owners across all of them, and it's like, when you lose revenue.
I thought there was like, it's genuine rivalry, and it really
it's consolidated massively. Like there's like a lot. It's like it's there's different bands and names, but they're all kind of like owned by the same entities now, which is an interesting one. It happened kind of a few years ago where there were a bunch of different ones and they started to consolidate, and now they're kind of all, I think, in the hands of a few.
Like a franchise now or something, basically. Remember back
something
in
like that.
When was it? I want to say it was like the 2007-8 days when the Miami Carnival was going on. They're split because one was Broward Carnival and one was Miami-Dade Carnival or Downtown Carnival, and it was two different owners of the carnival, and they like had a vicious fight for the revelers to see who would go with which band and who, if they could get Tribe to come with them in Miami versus them in Broward. And eventually, I think they both ended up just losing a lot of people overall. And then Broward won. And now that's why Carnival is held up in Fort Lauderdale now, going forward.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay.
Oh yeah, it was a battle to the death.
Yeah,
between the two carnivals.
Wow. So one thing I came to appreciate was that like when you're in Trinidad, you don't really pay attention to what's happening outside of Trinidad and all these other carnivals. But so like I lived in the UK for like a year, and I went to Notting Hill Carnival when I was there.
Yeah.
I remember, geez, that was crazy because it was literally like I was doing my dissertation at the time, and it was like 4 days away from the deadline or something, and I was definitely not near finished. And I was like, do I take this whole day and run down to Notting Hill and participate, or do I do the responsible thing and try to finish this thing? And yeah, I mean, of course I went to the carnival because it's like, how can I be in the UK and not go to their version of the carnival?
Obviously.
I think why I went to is because I was just like, it's just like, wow, I just haven't been home in so long. I haven't participated. I didn't participate that year. And I just wanted a piece of that experience. And it was for me, at least, it was just not good. It was just a very diluted version of what it actually is.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't even aware of what it like. Notting Hill is huge. There's like, I think tens of thousands of people come out for that thing.
Yep.
But I just wasn't aware because I was like, there's no reason for me to be aware of this if I'm not here. And I think it's the same thing that plays off, unless you're like actively seeking these experiences throughout the year, which I think people are now. But before that, being local alone was fine. You got like a full experience here, and it was, yeah. So like for a lot of us, we weren't really aware of all this bacchanal that was going on in Toronto and Miami and the UK and wherever else that it's playing off.
Once you get it pure from the source, you don't really need.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not a few days, right? Like all these other festivals are maybe 2 or 3 days or whatever. In Trinidad, it's months. It's like from the time Christmas is done, the 26th of December, Carnival starts all the way until whenever it is, February or March or whenever.
And then even
so you get like
Christmas
2 full
with
months
too, right? Like that's kind of Carnival anyway.
Parang kind of, yeah, it's a bit. But like I know there's this thing called the Soca Switch where like on midnight, Christmas night, like all the radio stations stop playing the Christmas music and then they just switch to soca. And on the 26th, you can find fetes, like the 26th night, Boxing Day night fetes. You can find those things like one time. I think they try to respect the Christmas period, so there isn't that before Christmas. But like right as it's done, there's this huge switch right into Carnival.
I love it.
So we get a lot of it. We get like 2 months of it. We're good.
There's so much memories about Carnival. All right. So what do you think? Can be done, if anything? Like I mean, Carnival is usually good by itself. It's an organism, right? But what can be done to improve the experience of Carnival using sound money? Let's throw Bitcoin in there and see what happens if you mix it up.
Oh wow, that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever thought of that.
Really?
Yeah. Let me think. So the way that Carnival works right now, the way that it's sustainable, there's a lot of, so maybe it's something like this. There's a lot of, for it to work, there's a lot of government funding that has to go into it. It's heavily subsidized. There's a lot of like, I don't know, public infrastructure and things that you have to use and do, and a lot of support. And like for the different carnival bands, the competitions, they're all very heavily government funded,
right?
Which is on its own, it's not sustainable, right? And I think there's been a push.
Tourism, like wouldn't the tourism bring back?
Enough.
Okay.
Yeah. So far, it's not been enough to put on the show to the scale that is put on right now. There's like pockets where it's like fetes and some of the bands and stuff, they can stand on their own. But then some of the other like activities, like just like all the activity around how the music gets made and the competitions that like support that, the steel band stuff, the more cultural elements of it. So you have like the carnival characters, you have like different shows that happen before the actual day. There's like this thing called Carnival that happens on the Friday before Carnival. There's things in the lead up to it that are more culture facing, and those are heavily funded because they're not as like revenue generating.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's an element. I know like right now, they're trying to figure out how to make those things more sustainable by figuring out how to broaden the access to those things. So like one is to package it in a way that it's interesting and appealing and can tap into some of this kind of, viral culture type thing. But two is also just like have it reach people who are willing to pay for it or figure out a way to have that generate money. And maybe there's, I don't know, maybe there's an element of that there where it's that as you go digital, as you start to expand your reach of it, maybe there's ways to tap into other communities that have, like maybe there's a way to, like these different ideas and products that they're thinking about. Maybe there's a way to offer it in a way where you can, because it's going to be a challenge being able to accept funds for these things. I mean, right now, maybe it's credit cards or something, but not everybody has a credit card. Like a lot of these places you're trying to reach, maybe like if you're trying to reach somebody in, I don't know, Jamaica or something, and they don't have a credit card that can make an international transaction, then they can't pay for these things, right?
That's right.
So maybe it's that as the cultural influence of it expands and you're trying to monetize that, maybe Bitcoin is a way where you can have it be kind of like broadly monetizable, I guess, if you're trying, because I mean, we have a lot, like, there's the Caribbean, but we also have a lot of people in African countries that are really interested in these things. Like soca plays off so massively in Nigeria and Ghana, and there's like a lot of people that come across. And I mean, geez, I didn't even realize the extent to which we had so many things in common. Like again, when I was in university, I lived with some Nigerian guys, and the music we listen to, the food we eat, some cultural things, like there's so much we have in common. Music definitely is a huge one. And I like a lot of these cultural elements, the storytelling, like the content that you put out around these things would have, I bet, massive appeal across there as well. So it's I guess that can be an element of it as it broadens its reach outside of Trinidad, outside of the Caribbean, and there's that monetization element. How do you monetize? How do you package the content? Like, can you fit it to like, maybe it's like smaller chunks like of things, or maybe it's, I don't know, like however, maybe there's a monetization strategy in there somewhere that fits with the reach that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and fits with what they want to spend, what they can afford to spend, what they want to spend, what they have the ability to spend, because some of them, like a credit card transaction right now has to be minimum of a couple of dollars for it to make sense, where you can stream sats for, the latest competition that's going on right now, live streamed from, what was the name of the competition you said that happens before Carnival Sunday, the week before? It's a like more cultural competition that happens, and they crown the...
Oh yeah, so it's not a competition, it's a show. It's like a reenactment from like the origins of Carnival. It's called Canboulay. It's spelled differently sometimes, but it's kind of this it's at 5 a.m. usually, at about 5 a.m.
That's Juve time.
Used to be in Juve time. Juve is Sunday. Yeah, so Juve is Sunday at 5 a.m. This one is a show on Friday at 5 a.m.
Okay.
And it's kind of it's like retelling the story of like when slavery was winding down, but there was still that sort of those clashes, and there was a lot of censoring of like the culture of like those people. And they wanted to express it, and this is how they found their way to express it. And then that led to certain clashes, and it ended up being this huge. There was a Canboulay riot in the 1800s somewhere, and like from that, a lot of Carnival things. There were a lot of elements of Carnival that came from those things. So there's this reenactment of that whole story that happens, to kind of as a kind of like a throwback to like, hey, this is where some of this came from. Here's where some of the characters come from. It's an expression of resistance, an expression of ourselves, an expression of so things like that. And even like the traditional characters, like I used to do I don't know if you guys have mocha jumbies in Jamaica, these stilt walkers. These guys who get up on stilts 3, 4, 5, 6 feet. So we call them mocha jumbies here. So that's a big part of our carnival. They and a lot of other people, and there's been like these movements to kind of like teach people how to do that, and kind of revive that part of the culture and have people participate in that as well.
Okay.
So I did that for like a year. I still walked for like a year, just like teaching people and participating and stuff.
You know how to do it well.
I can do it well up to 3 feet. Like when you get up to like 4 and 5 feet, it gets wobbly, but I'm very confident up to 3 feet.
That's amazing.
But it's like things like that where you start to reach out to people, involve them, and then kind of get them back in from that other side, from the cultural side of it, not from the kind of jump and wine side of it, which is nice too. But
it's like most people come into Bitcoin for number go up. Most people come into Carnival for the jump and wine. And you might end up falling on a rabbit hole and learning what the true culture is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I just did today. I learned all this.
Exactly.
what would you like? What would the one thing you want people to know about Trinidad that people probably don't know today?
I think, yeah. So the things that I want people to know, I think a big draw is like just the influence of Carnival, and like I think if you come and you experience that or you engage with that in any way, you get a really good taste for Trinidad culture and Trinidad, just like the entire thing. So I would just fall back to that because that's it's such a huge part of what we do and who we are, and it's like a good like quick easy package summary of like how you jump into Trinidad society. Like I know people who came for Carnival and never left. You know, like it's things like that. I would say yeah, like that's a big part of it. That's enough.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. That's a whole picture. It's a whole picture in itself. Yeah. It's a rabbit hole in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely is.
I have a couple of friends that are from Trinidad. I actually have a group that's like from all over the Caribbean, but we lived in Atlanta for a long time. That's kind of where I started my early career. And a lot of them are not orange pilled, despite my best efforts. And especially a particular Trinidadian that is hardcore not pilled, who is into technology. Like he works, you know, like high up in technology strategy and understands trends and understands, you know, the macro environment, and is hardcore against Bitcoin. He's like, yeah, this is foolishness. It's not gonna work. Government going to lock that down. I'm trying to figure out how I can reach. Like we're debating.
I have friends like that too.
You do?
Yeah. I have friends like that too, and it's for me. It's just like in time you'll figure it out. Because if you look at like one of my favorite recent anecdotes of this is there's DHH, the guy Basecamp co-founder. So there's two guys. There's this company Basecamp, really popular. So Jason Fried is one and DHH is one. Okay. And he's been very vocally against Bitcoin for the last 10 from very early, from 20, I think 11, 12, 13ish, tweeting about it, talking about it, just against it. It's a stupid idea. It won't work for these reasons. This is why it will fail, blah, 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 whatever. And I think something happened. Was it earlier this year? Maybe it was a Canadian trucker thing, or I can't remember what it was, but he just came out and he wrote this thing and he was like, oh, I get it now. And it was like a full 180. And it was just like, what? Like this guy hates us. What? How did he 180? This is crazy. And he's somebody who's, again, deep in tech, understands tech. Those guys wrote Ruby on Rails.
Yes.
They do a lot of like tech thought leadership type things and just company thought leadership startups, all those sorts of things. So it's not that they're not aware of like how these things work and the culture behind it, and just they are aware, right? And it just didn't click until that event, and then it was just like, oh, this one thing completely changed his perception of it. And I think it's just that there's elements of it that are different for different people. If it is that this thing is going to be successful, it'll be here. It's not going to go away. It's not going to be anytime soon. Yeah. And when it's right for you, you'll find it. And and when it's not right for you, you're just not going to get it until you have to get it. And like for me, it's that it's a shame if people don't get it before. But I feel like it's that thing that people say, right? It's everybody finds it in their own time and in their own understanding, and it's kind of tough to rush it. I've tried with multiple people in the past, and I've gotten to the point where it's that. For me, it's almost like I can say what I have to say, but I have no expectations. And if somebody doesn't get it, I'm not going to try to force it. It's that I just want it, like, if they're exposed to like the message I want them to be exposed to and it doesn't land, fine. It'll come back another time maybe or whatever. But that's kind of my approach to those kinds of things. Yeah.
It's a good approach. Probably an approach I'm going to be taking too, because I'm kind of over the part where I'm shaking people, trying to get them to get it. So I really like that approach. It probably brings a lot of stress.
I did a lot of that. Because I did a lot of that, right? I did all the meetups, I did the freaking TED Talk. I did a lot around, I did a whole startup just like with a focus of creating a use case for Bitcoin. Like I did a lot of convincing, a lot of convincing. And it got to the point where it's that you get to this point where it's that this thing has its own timeline and you just have to fit, you can't rush it. Just fit its timeline and it'll work out when it has to work out. Like that's kind of where I got into now.
I agree with that, man. I agree with that. Well, I've taken up almost an hour of your time. Probably going to try to cut this down to 45 minutes to half an hour. But you can go ahead and tell people where to find you if you want them to find you. Anything you're working on, or any last words you got for the people watching.
Yeah, sure. So easiest thing is just to find me on Twitter. It's like at Vindard, VINDARD. And yeah, I guess like if anybody's looking at like the thing I'm interested in these days working on is stuff with community banking at Galoy, and I guess things that are similar to that, like the Fediment stuff that Eric and they are working on, and this idea of community custody as a way to just reach the next group of people. I find that interesting. And I think the challenge will be to do it in a way where like it's always to do it in a way where you don't compromise or co-opt Bitcoin. That's always a challenge. Don't push people into centralized solutions they can't get out of. Don't push people into bad habits. And I think that's an interesting line to walk. So if anybody's interested in in what's happening in that space, Galoy has a really interesting stack that we're working on that does some of that stuff. I would say that's the thing that I want people to know about Bitcoin these days. Check out how community custody is going, and I guess how that fits as a way to get Bitcoin to a new group of people. That and Fediment, which I'm not as involved, I'm not involved in at all. I haven't looked into it too much, but it's really interesting because it's the same sort of vibe. And I do that's one of my next things to look at as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I got 2 follow-ups then if you have time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The first one would be Galoy. I don't think we talked about Galoy, and they had a significant impact in my trip to El Salvador. So I'd love for you to tell the crew, if nobody doesn't know who Galoy is, tell them who Galoy is as a company, the app they've created, and the actual backbone that you guys are building back there as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I guess where I would start is the whole El Salvador story. So I guess we should just recount that. The story of El Salvador is the story of El Zonte, and it's this little village on the coast where somebody, an anonymous donor, I think, donated some Bitcoin, and his only caveat was that it should be spent to build a circular economy. He wanted it to be used as a sort of experiment. And around the same time, one of the guys who founded Galoy, Nicholas, he went to visit El Zonte because he heard this thing is happening. And he noticed that as part of the adoption story, they didn't have tools to use to be able to tailor a user experience to what they're seeing on the ground, because it's people who are not, I guess they're not the most resourced. They don't have a lot of experience with technology, with mobile apps. It's villagers on a coast in El Salvador, right? So from there, he had already been thinking of, I guess, a way to deploy a community custody kind of Bitcoin solution to solve a problem like that, where people maybe aren't as savvy able to custody their own Bitcoin, but they would be fine with custodying it with somebody they know. So it's that community. It's I don't have control over it, but I know who has control over it. They're right down the road, and if something goes wrong, it's kind of like my recourse. It's not like you're using an app where the custody is happening somewhere in some other country. It's happening very close to home.
Right, Uncle Jim down the road.
So exactly. So it's kind of like the Bitcoin Beach wallet came out of that, and that was our proof of concept, where it's that, what do you need to do to build a Bitcoin bank, right? And it was this whole back end with Bitcoin and Lightning enabled, and an accounting system that was exposed via an API that the app spoke to, and that was a proof of concept, Bitcoin Beach. And then once that took off, and we saw the potential of that, and then after that, El Salvador hit their whole national legal tender thing, and things just went crazy from there. After that, we kind of looked at, oh wait, that was a great proof of concept, success story type thing. How do we expand that? And since then, the stack has been kind of we've kind of been working on the stack to make it this thing that people can use in whatever context. They can deploy it in their own community banks. They can deploy it within solutions of other things. Wherever you need a Bitcoin banking solution, we're trying to get the stack to that point where it's that you can just take this thing and drop it in there, and boom, you have this Bitcoin banking layer that speaks Bitcoin, speaks Lightning, speaks on-chain and Lightning, has its own internal accounting system, and exposes an API that you can use to just interact, wherever with. So I think the thesis is open source plus Bitcoin is a very nice version of decentralized finance. You always hear the other versions of DeFi, decentralized finance, but we think if you can get these little community banks in a bunch of different places that can all speak Bitcoin and increase access and then all interoperate with other things, that's a really great version of decentralized finance as well. So I think that's our thesis, and it's all open source. It's all totally available. There's a bunch of communities that have kind of popped up since Bitcoin Beach. Bitcoin Jungle has been doing amazing things. they're in Costa Rica. We have Bitcoin Prior that's coming up now in Brazil. That's a super interesting one because we're trying to get the entire stack down to a single device. It's typically tailored to run in the cloud, in Google Cloud. And there's this really cool project with Open Arms who does stuff on Raspberry Blitz.
Yep.
But he's been working with the guy from Brazil, Fernando, and they've both been working on getting these stack down to run on a single laptop with the Raspberry Blitz stack. So that would be wild. So he can run his entire bank from a laptop.
What?
So that's an ongoing project. But it's things like that where like we're starting to go out to different communities. Fode in Senegal, he's planning to do some stuff.
I saw him fork it, and he's using the.
Yeah, he's already forked it, and yeah, I mean, he's done some designs from what experience, and he's just gonna stick that in there as his community banking solution, and be able to turn it on and have Bitcoin banking for that context. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're building that stack, we're iterating on that stack, we're getting all this great feedback from all these other communities, and it's kind of going back into how we design the product and how we kind of optimize it. And eventually we want to get to the point to where it's that it can be a stack that reaches out into more traditional finance places. If there's like institutions, cities, banks, whatever, credit unions, whatever, that aren't as quite along in their Bitcoin journey. But this is like a very easy solution for them to get started on that journey. It's something we're also looking at. Can this thing also be deployed in other like finance contexts? So I think that's an interesting angle as well that we're working on. But yeah, so it's pretty much the Galoy stack is a Bitcoin banking stack, all open source, all on GitHub. For anybody who's interested in this kind of community custody thing, I would say definitely check that out. Yeah.
100% agree. And I would add that they've been the technical background for the entire movement of Bitcoin Beach. I think if it wasn't for them, because you guys were there before Strike, as far as I remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I don't think the technical rails would have been there for the movement to start in the first place. So kudos, man, for doing an amazing job so far on the ground and continuing to do that. Hopefully I see you guys in many other countries. I'm hoping to see it in Jamaica. I've started creating designs for an app that I want to fork you guys and use too, but I'm also thinking about if an LSP function can be added in there, because I would love if you're able to like actually have that as a free market of Lightning liquidity, as opposed to just making it vending and point of sale. Yeah,
I think we're probably gonna get there at some point pretty soon too, because we've been adding this new feature, USD over Lightning, which has been a super interesting one. Where there's like a dealer in there now, and it does hedging, and we kind of like hedge Bitcoin at rest to USD, but then when it's in flight, it becomes Bitcoin again. And as part of that, there's some routing, like there's things we've had to work on just how the routing works and how like I guess like how you provide that, like that dealer has to provide that hedging as a service on the Lightning Network for the things that we're connected to. So we're starting to stretch into that territory of, okay, how do we be mindful about these routes, and how you can get visibility into your liquidity management things, and how you can rebalance things, and how you can just be like a public node on the network providing certain services, routing services, and maybe eventually these kind of like dealer exchange services, because there's a few things that might need that. Like there's the standard sats thing that came out recently. I think Fiat Jeff has been promoting that. I can't remember who made it. But that's another approach, using hosted channels to do the same kind of stable thing over Lightning. There's routing involved and that kind of broker thing involved. And then the Taro thing that they dropped at
I saw that
at Bitcoin Miami, LND, those Lightning Labs, like that Lightning Labs thing, like part of that solution will also involve like interchange nodes and a dealer function and hedging and all that thing, like all those sorts of things. So yeah, it might be coming to the stack. Well, the USD thing is definitely coming to the stack very soon. It's kind of already in beta. And then the just like more visibility into like how you can manage that interchange and how you can manage your routing and stuff. I think some of that should be coming along as well at some point. We'll need it for sure. So at some point we'll probably expose it as well. But yeah.
That would be exciting. That'd be super exciting. I mean, I wish I had the time to do all of this. I mean, with all the stuff I'm trying to learn right now and start 9 coding, it's not a lot of free time to be playing around, but it's still exciting that it's there, like as opposed to back in the day when we were just working at regular fiat jobs and not giving a shit about what you're actually
right?
coding. You know?
Can you imagine there's still people working at fiat jobs? It's crazy.
Aye.
Yeah.
Well, we can
same.
talk about Fedimint another time because that's a whole other rabbit hole that I want to get into. And I haven't done my research about Charmian Mints enough to understand why Fedimint is important. So I'd love to chat to you about that.
I mean, I can give you a two-liner on why it's important.
Give it to me.
It's important because it allows the same level of self-custody that we do with Galoy right now, but it does it in a very private way. So like the whole idea of Charmian Mints is that it's blinded transactions internally. So whoever's running the mint cannot see who's getting money, who's sending out money, who transferred money. It's very private for the users. And that's like, to me, like a very significant advantage of something like that over the solution that we're building. Like our solution is more, this is what's available right now. And this is what allows us to like figure out the UX of this thing and figure out like drive adoption because it's available now. Fedimint is still like a little while away. But yeah,
let me make sure.
Eventually lands.
Let me make sure I understand, and the public understands too what we're talking about. So Charmian Mints is like taking the amount or the actual Bitcoin, putting it in almost a virtual envelope, so no one can really see it, stamping it, passing it over, so someone can see that you did stamp it, but they don't know what's in it, and they can go ahead and stamp that too. Yeah, and then the photocopy
it's
inside.
Funny because it's funny because that's the exact metaphor that they use when they're explaining blinded signatures. That whole idea of you put a thing in an envelope and you don't know the contents of the envelope, but you can sign the outside of it, stamp it, but you don't know the contents, right? You gave somebody else the envelope, they close it, they seal it, and then you sign it.
Right.
And like the way you get into a Fedimint is that you would deposit Bitcoin into this multi-sig. It's kind of like how Liquid works right now. You deposit it into this federation. That's why it's Fedimint, federated mint. It's a federated bank. So you deposit Bitcoin into a multi-sig, and the mint, it's another way to do Liquid. And the mint issues you these mint tokens against the Bitcoin. So it could be like a Bitcoin representative. They give you back sats that you can use inside the mint among other users, or they could choose to back some other token or asset or something and issue that, maybe, I don't know. But what's interesting too is that it supports Lightning out of the box, at least the one that Eric is doing. Yeah. So you can route from mint to mint. Like that's a big part of it, is that you're not locked into a single mint. You don't have to go to the mint owners to get out. Right. You can route across to another mint or route into Bitcoin using Lightning. So it's like it's kind of federated Fediverse of different mints that all speak to each other, but also speak to Bitcoin, which is super interesting.
That is fucking boss. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then what is the debate then around using Fedimints as opposed to, like, it doesn't require a hard fork, right? You can.
No, Fedimints are good right now. Like Eric is working on that right now. It's just going to take time to build out. It's a process. But there's no controversy. There's nothing like OpsCTV. All that drama is totally separate. That's Vaults, which is a totally separate thing.
Check template verify. I'm not even going to start.
It's like a whole separate thing. Fedimint is like its own thing. It has all the primitives it needs already. It's just to implement it. I mean, there's nothing because it's just a multi-sig. It's just a multi-sig on Bitcoin. On the Bitcoin side, it's just a multi-sig. Yep. And then in the mint itself, you can do different things because you're not, at that point, you're not participating in Bitcoin consensus. So you can do your, like, whatever experiments you want to do, kind of like what Liquid does.
Yeah, pretty clean sidechain and layer 2, technology.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's nothing holding it back. It's just time and contributors, I guess. I think they're looking for contributors. So it's time and that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Fode is trying to do a lot of his stuff in Rust as well. His whole academy is in Rust. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, Brethren. It's been great liming with you.
Same.
Feel like I've been trying to keep these things down to a half an hour because I want them to like be more digestible, but and that was a good convo. Yeah. And there's so much more to cover, but whatever. It's all good. I
think this is just a line for us. I don't think that I don't even feel like this is our podcast. I feel like we were just lime talking about Bitcoin and the Caribbean.
Yeah, man. So all right, one question. You're going to Carnival this year? Like, will it sell out already and everybody going on bad?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. Like, of course.
For real?
Like, it's gonna be in 2020. No, it is 2023.
2023, yeah.
February. Yeah, February, Marchish. Yeah, no, the bands still have space. Like the only thing that's sold out right now, I think, rooms in Trinidad, accommodations. If you're local, you're fine. If
Yeah.
you're coming in from outside, it's a bit trickier. But it's still wide open. Yeah.
But yeah,
Nice.
man.
So, yeah, you safe then. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Usually, but it's everybody else I feel sorry for now with the $10,000
Yeah.
costume and
Yeah.
package deal and
Yeah.
the hard
I think
man.
it's literally that. I think you literally have to put aside $5,000 to $10,000 if you
Yep.
want to come in, and then with that you only get like what, a week or two or something, 2 weeks maybe.
2 weeks. If you maybe a week if you're doing all the parties, or you're not getting more than a week out of that. Like
Yeah.
the cost the prices for the all-inclusive parties now have gotten ridiculous. I remember back when Brian Lara was just a $400 party and everybody was crying that was expensive.
400
Now,
TT or US?
I think it was TT, 400 TT at the time.
Yeah, so like 50, 60 US maybe.
Yeah, and I thought that was expensive. But now I think
that's really expensive because FETs used to be like $80, $100 TT. So like $10 to $15 US. That was a FET. And then you go with your sneakers and your whatever, and you just like,
you buy a buckle of rum for like
right?
for like
it's
6
just
TT.
a vibe. Yeah. That's maybe like 20 years ago or something. Like now it's not that at all.
Yeah. I'm dating myself. I'm old, I guess. Still can enjoy.
The tail end of that era.
That's the one thing about Carnival that I want everybody to know, though, that Carnival is one of the few places in the world that I've been able to party, and I've seen every single generation in the streets partying like nothing wrong. Like there's no problem. You can have the teenagers, the old grandfather, grandmother, the uncles, the aunt, everybody just in the same line, just partying behind a truck or watching a show, or it's just, it's one of the few places that I really think people can experience that kind of pure joy. And I appreciate Carnival for that. I appreciate Trinidad's culture for that. Jamaica don't stay in most places.
Yeah, it ropes people in. There's this guy, Ray Funk, from the States, who is like our Carnival archivist person. He has like decades of footage, and it's funny because it's somebody who's not from Trinidad who just got into it and really loved it, and now he comes back for the film festivals, he comes back around Carnival, and he's the guy you go to for all this old Carnival footage. It's just like he got sucked in. It sucks you in.
Yeah, man. Hope it sucks in more people after they watch this. Man.
Nice. All right, this is good.
All right, Virgin, let me stop the recording. Been nice talking to you.
I hate